This video is sponsored by Envato, a great all-around video asset resource for video editors. So you've seen it in the news, you've seen it here on YouTube, you've seen it everywhere. Everyone's talking about the new Apple MacBook Pro 16-inch 2019 model. It's got improved graphics, processor, all kinds of really nice goodies, but is it really worth it for video editors right now? I mean, honestly, is the MacBook worth the $2,500 price tag that it has on it? By the way, this isn't real money at all. It's actually prop money that I found on Amazon. See, it has some writing here and it has like this weird notch here in the corner. I've been wanting to incorporate it, so it's definitely fake money because I actually spent my money on the new MacBook Pro so that I can test it out, run some export tests. I specifically wanted to compare it to my previous MacBook, which was the 2018 15-inch, and compare it with some of those thermal throttling issues that the previous MacBooks were having, especially when rendering, and that was really important for me. First, we have to talk about the actual size of it. Yes, it is now a 16-inch screen rather than a 15-inch screen. The 16-inch screen size is definitely a small step up from previous MacBook Pro, thus giving me a little bit more room for my timelines, and that's really nice. But in reality, I haven't really noticed it a whole lot. Although what you will notice is that the case is just a little bit bulkier. That's really nice because it fits some larger components, like the 100 watt-hour battery, which is actually the maximum allowed size that the FAA will allow you to bring on your carry-on with your laptop. So this battery improvement is definitely a nice addition for travel filmmakers or filmmakers who travel frequently to productions all over the world. They also added a better speaker system, which may not really be that big of a deal to some people out there, but for example, if you forget your headphones and you're in a hotel room and you need to do some sound editing or something, I mean, it actually is a pretty impressive sound system. I know it's not going to directly translate to actually hearing it in person, but I'm just going to go ahead and try to capture that with my studio mic and just my onboard mic on my camera. And that's it. You can't just punch a little bit of it into it. You have to go all the way. It's 100% intensity on those settings. A couple things that I really... So, yeah, it sounds pretty nice. Of course, it's not going to completely replace headphones or anything like that, but it definitely gets the job done. Another plus in the newer design is a new microphone. Completely rebuilt. They're touting it as like a studio microphone. I don't really use microphones on laptops a whole lot. I didn't use it on my 2018 15-inch MacBook Pro. I'm not really planning on using it because I do have an external recorder with me, usually at all times. But if I did have to record audio onto my computer, it's passable. Let's talk about the elephant in the room and something that I 100% use a lot in editing situations, which is the keyboard. I use keyboard shortcuts all the time when I'm on the go, so this is something that's really important to me. The older butterfly keyboard on the 2018 MacBook didn't have a lot of travel. It felt kind of strange. It's been plagued with some problems, and people have actually talked about this online, so I'm not gonna go into all the issues with the old butterfly keyboard. So they brought back an older version of their keyboard that people tended to actually like a lot better, and they reintroduced it into the new 16-inch MacBook Pro. It's awesome. It just feels better. It feels like a cleaner typing experience. So I'm definitely happy to have this newer keyboard, and I'm happy that this keyboard is actually in order. Now, as a bonus, they actually included the escape key, which isn't really something that I absolutely needed, but anything that we can win back from the Apple Touch Bar, I'm all for. Now, earlier I briefly touched on the issues that I was having in thermal throttling when rendering and other heavy workload tasks that I was throwing at my 2018 15-inch MacBook Pro. Here's the thing to keep in mind about computers in regards to rendering and other heavy workloads. If the computer cannot control its internal temperature and keep it lower, or at least cooled off enough, it will not work as hard until it can. And in a nutshell, that is what thermal throttling is. And obviously this can be a huge problem to video editors. So I thought maybe I could fix this issue in the 2018 MacBook Pro by purchasing a laptop cooler that I kind of set it on top of, and it actually keeps it cool. With the new design, as you'll see in my test in a little bit, I'm actually getting way better cooling. It's cooling much more efficiently. I think the bulkier case allows for more airflow, so it's kind of keeping the components that need to stay cool. So that's really nice to be able to actually use it and not experience as much thermal throttling or anything of that sort. Although with the newer MacBook, I am hearing the fans turn on a lot more often when I am working in Premiere or sending out a render. As long as it's working, as long as it's keeping the internals cool, that's the number one function that's important to me. Now, before I dive into specs, let me just give a quick shout out to this video sponsor, Envato. If you haven't heard of Envato, it's a marketplace where they offer Premiere Pro templates, presets, sound effects, stock footage, and much more. Like this Instagram story template for Premiere, where you can edit from a pre-made design and make it your own. I've been personally using Envato for years for sound effects, graphic design templates, you name it. And now they have Envato Elements, which works as a subscription, where you can download from their library of over 1 million assets for only only $16.50 a month. If you want to check them out yourself and find out all that they have to offer, you can find my affiliate link listed below in the description. And now on to the actual model that I chose and why I chose it for video editing. I went with the higher end 2.3 gigahertz i9 8-core processor. I didn't upgrade that because I didn't see much of a reason to. It's well known these days that video editing programs are leaning towards more GPU dependent foundations. And that's most likely because the gaming and cryptocurrency industry popularity has created a demand for more powerful GPU systems. And as filmmakers, we benefited from competitive pricing. In this instance, this processor is great for me as we start to see that change take place with each new update. With that said, I did want to go with the 8-core processor over the base model 6-core processor because I feel like that's going to allow me to really take advantage of the Blackmagic RAW coming out of my BMPCC 4K. Working with B-RAW on this processor is just clean. And since I'm editing and completing a short film right now, shot entirely in B-RAW, this has been a big plus and allowed me to really push the limits of it. Aside from the processor, I opted for the 8GB graphics card over the 4GB graphics card. It's only $100 difference, and to be honest, this is probably one of the most surprising pricing structures for me with regards to the new MacBook Pro. It's just a deal, and I really don't know if that you're actually considering this unit, why you would go for anything less than the 8GB graphics card since it's only a $100 increase. You're just gonna notice it when scrubbing through a high resolution timeline, or if you're trying to play back a clip that has a lot of effects applied and film grain and LUTs and all kinds of different color correction. This is actually going to perform way better than the 4GB graphics card. And that's why I recommend that if you're buying this for video editing specifically, I would 100% recommend that you at least upgrade this 8GB graphics card over anything else in this machine. Now for RAM, I chose the 32GB RAM. This is something that is really helpful when you're running multiple applications at once. Something I like to do a lot when I'm working in Premiere is I'll have like Photoshop or After Effects open so I can work on graphics for my videos, and I would just bounce between the two programs. So I find this incredibly beneficial for people who are editing in multiple applications at once. To top off my build, I stuck with the 1TB SSD, which some people may say, you know, that's a little too low. But you know, this actually just allows me to edit about 3 or 4 projects simultaneously on my internal hard drive, and that's really enough for me. Anything else that I need to really bring in, I can just use an external SSD, which they're getting more affordable these days. I have a rugged SanDisk SSD that's 1TB that's really fast. I can edit 4K footage off of it without any issues. I have a Samsung T5 for my Blackmagic Pocket Cinema camera 4K, so I'm good on external storage if I needed it for additional larger projects. So how do all these new specs compare to what I was working on before? Just so you have a reference going into these tests. So in the 2018 MacBook model, I originally had a 2.6 gigahertz i7 6-core processor with 16GB of RAM, 4GB graphics card Radeon Pro 560X, and a 512GB SSD. Upgrading to this new 16-inch MacBook Pro has allowed me to nearly double all of my specs. To recap, I now have an i9 8-core processor, 32GB of RAM, a Radeon Pro 5500 8GB graphics card, and a 1TB SSD. But these numbers really don't mean anything unless you're actually using them in the real world. I took my most recent video and ran an export test on my previous 2018 15-inch MacBook Pro and my new 2019 16-inch MacBook Pro, which is my most common workflow. It's a 5-minute, 24 frame per second, 1440p timeline with mostly 4K footage, color grading, graphics, and that sweet face. The 2018 MacBook Pro, my previous one, rendered out the video in 22 minutes and 6 seconds. Now, as for the 2019 16-inch MacBook Pro, it finished the same render in 16 minutes and 43 seconds. That's nearly 25% faster than the previous design. Now, this is something that could really help me in a pinch out in the field if I needed to get out a render. This also saves me a lot of time. Clearly, this is just a winner, and this new 16 inch is an absolute keeper. It'll age well for me for video editing in the next couple of years, and I can see why it's a top contender now for most creators here on this platform. It's just a powerful machine, and it's something really handy to have in your backpack or while you're traveling. I know that there's an age-old debate, Mac versus PC, and I'm probably gonna open the floodgates with this one. Drop what system and your specs that you're working with for video editing for your everyday projects. I'd love to hear from you. I'd also like to see what everyone else is working on out in the field. Also, if we're not connected on any other platforms, you can find me on Twitter at @newmanfilms and on Instagram at AustinMakesFilms. And until next time, guys, that's a wrap.